Tonight, more controversy. Jordan Keeley quits the BC Conservative Party. Structure fire. The building destroyed this weekend in Fort St. John. And trade war. Peace Region canola farmers have cause for concern. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with the MLA for Peace River North leaving the BC Conservative Party to sit as an independent. Jordan Keeley with a confusing announcement on Friday, the rookie MLA saying he's lost faith in leader John Rustad. Later that night, he said he was going to start a new party, then today he backed away from that statement. Keeley has had a tumultuous 3.5 weeks since the legislature resumed, and as Jeff Cunha reports, now his constituents may be the ones who'll have to pay for it.
I don't want to be in this situation. I wanted to be in a party that formed really well and was able to beat the NDP. Yeah. But right now, I'd be amazed if that party survives another year.
Harsh words from Jordan Keeley outside the steps of the BC legislature this morning. Not even a month has passed since the legislature has resumed, and the MLA will now represent the riding of Peace River North as an independent after deciding to leave the BC Conservatives.
I ran my election on who I am, and I was running for a party that I thought it had conservative morals and values, and it turned out to be completely opposite.
The upheaval comes after leader John Rustad ousted Dallas Brody from the party, the MLA for Vancouver Quilshana going on a podcast mocking the testimony of residential school survivors.
This whole thing about my truth and your truth, my truth.
Keeley standing with Brody, although he says he recognizes the painful history of residential schools and their impact. The decision based on repeated instances of disrespect, abuse, and dishonesty within the party, according to Keeley. It comes after a scathing Facebook post Friday where he said he's lost faith in Rustad, questioned conservative values, and accused the party of backroom games.
John Rustad harbored a lynch mob. It is this behavior and lack of integrity I cannot stand behind.
However, the decision calls into question the repercussions in his riding and the nearly 40,000 constituents he represents.
We're not going to be represented, I don't think, the way that Peace River North deserves to be represented, and that is my biggest worry.
Longtime MLA Dan Davies lost to Keeley running as an independent after a blue wave swept through the province. He points to Keeley's lack of working relationships within government, stakeholders, and community groups as a drawback in driving change.
I don't believe Jordan has that. In fact, I know Jordan doesn't have that. He just has not been there long enough.
He's now encouraging the MLA to reach outside his base to meet the diverse needs of the riding.
I think if he were to really go out there and have broad conversations outside his close circle, he would be hearing a very different story.
During the provincial election campaign, Davies and Mike Bernier were chastised for running as independents. Davies says the real winners now are going to be the NDP.
You're not going to be the one guy that gets your way over top of everyone else in the province. That's just not how it works.
Keeley continues to defend his stance and says he will fight for the region. Plans for him, Brody, and MLA Tara Armstrong to form a new party and caucus have been put on hold for now. However, they're calling it early days as whispers of more BC Conservatives jumping ship shape a new reality in BC politics. In Fort St. John, Jeff Cunha, CJDC-TV News.
Well, a fire has destroyed a building at the RV Corner campsite in Fort St. John. The blaze breaking out at around 7 p.m. Saturday along Alaska Road North. 22 firefighters from Fort St. John, Taylor, and Charlie Lake all had to be called in to extinguish the fire. And crews remaining on scene for nearly 3 hours to bring it under control. Now, the blaze is not being considered suspicious. The person had been using the building as a shelter prior to the fire. However, no injuries have been reported. The building now a complete teardown, with the fire department now working with the property owner to have it removed. Most of the focus has been on tariffs from the United States, but an escalating trade war with China could spell trouble for canola farmers here in the Peace region. Beijing implementing retaliatory tariffs on select Canadian farm imports. The move was in response to Canadian duties against Chinese electric vehicles, as well as steel and aluminum. Now, China is hitting Canada with 100% tariffs on canola oil and peas. It's also adding 25% tariffs on pork and aquatic products. 98% of BC's canola comes from right here in the Peace region. The tariffs are expected to come into effect in 10 days. And as the trade war between Canada and the United States continues, BC's Premier David Eby says he's considering putting a surcharge on electricity exports to the United States.
We are passing a law, we're introducing a law in the legislature that will allow us to take measures that could impose export charges or restrict energy exports to the United States. But that is a very significant step, and we recognize that.
Today, Ontario Premier Doug Ford imposed a 25% surcharge on electricity exports. That'll affect states of Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. And in addition to a surcharge, Ford has threatened to cut off the power completely by early April if the tariffs remain in place. And BC has fired yet another salvo in the trade war with the U.S. The Premier says all American liquor products will now be removed from BC liquor stores. David Eby says the decision is in recognition that BC residents do not want to see any American products on the shelves. The province had already pulled liquor products that are made in Republican states from store shelves. The Premier says the province didn't act immediately on all American products because leaders from Democratic states have been advocating for our country in the U.S. And Eby also saying today the province is committed to removing the consumer carbon tax. The Premier says it's unfortunate the policy became politicized, and he adds the tax has been an important tool to drive down carbon pollution. The province will look for other ways to make polluters pay without burdening consumers. Eby says the removal of the carbon tax will happen as soon as the federal laws upholding the policy are no longer in place. Well, next time you're shopping at No Frills or the Wholesale Club, a new symbol has been designed to help shoppers identify products impacted by U.S. tariffs. All Loblaw stores will be adding a T symbol to its products. They will help customers identify tariffed items and explain why those prices have increased. Loblaw has warned customers to be prepared to pay more for items coming from south of the border. And amid all the economic uncertainty being caused by Trump's tariffs, many are looking ahead to this week's interest rate decision by the Bank of Canada. Economists are predicting the central bank will slash the rate by a quarter point on Wednesday as it waits to see how long the trade war with the U.S. will last. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem has stated the bank will use its policy rate to smooth the impacts of tariffs, but he's also warned that if the trade war is prolonged, Canada's economy will not bounce back as quickly as it did after the COVID-19 pandemic. The new Liberal leader is promising a quick transition after meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today, but exactly when Mark Carney will be formally assuming power is still unknown. Mike LeCouture has more from Ottawa.
With many expecting a federal election sooner rather than later, Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney got right to work and right here to Parliament Hill, meeting with the old leadership and his new team.
Really honored by the mandate I received from the Liberal Party. A lot of wood to chop. Very much looking forward to meeting with the Prime Minister and getting going.
With former Liberal MP Marco Mendicino as his chief of staff, Mark Carney met with the outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for 2 hours. His next order of business was to meet with the reinvigorated caucus.
I think Mr. Carney is what Canada needs as a whole.
There are people that have joined across the country explicitly who have told me, I've never voted Liberal before, but I'll be voting Liberal this election because of Mark Carney's leadership.
Carney won an overwhelming mandate from Liberals, taking the leadership with nearly 86% of the vote. MPs clearly feel they have momentum to carry into an eventual federal election.
I know that now that we have a new leader, people are going to be excited to run for us, so I don't have any worries about us finding excellent candidates for the upcoming election.
Just when Carney will call that election, he wouldn't say. But he did tell reporters he's moving swiftly on a seamless transition from the Trudeau government.
Just had a meeting with the caucus. There is tremendous energy in the Liberal caucus. As you saw last evening, this is a united party with full of energy to serve Canadians.
Trudeau and Carney weren't seen together at all in what could be the Prime Minister's last day on Parliament Hill. But Conservatives continue to try and paint the two leaders with the same red brush.
The Liberal establishment has installed Justin Trudeau's economic advisor as the next Liberal leader to trick Canadians into giving Liberals a 4th term in power. But he's just like Justin, and he's more of the same.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also took aim at the new Liberal leader.
That is his plan for the economic uncertainty of Donald Trump, for the threats of Donald Trump, is to give money to millionaires, to cut jobs, and to cut health care.
It's unclear just when he'll be sworn in as Prime Minister, but he'll be taking over a country in the middle of a trade war with the U.S. Mike LeCouture, CTV News, Ottawa.
And Mark Carney has the support of former BC Premier Christy Clark, who's now seriously considering running as a Liberal in the next federal election. While she originally had leadership ambitions of her own, Clark says, Carney is the right man at the helm as the federal Liberals begin an uphill battle to win another term in government. Clark says she's prepared to run for a seat here in BC or act as a surrogate to keep Pierre Poilievre from becoming Prime Minister. The former Premier has called Poilievre the most divisive politician that Canada has seen in years. Despite polls showing the Liberals behind in BC, Clark points to her own come-from-behind victory in 2013 as proof that with a new leader, the party can still win in this province. Crime Stoppers is launching a new training program for hotel employees across Canada in an effort to combat human trafficking. The free online training is now available to all employees for hotels from BC to Ontario. The program will give employees the knowledge to recognize, respond to, and report human trafficking. According to Crime Stoppers, human trafficking is one of the top 3 most common crimes that affect the hospitality industry. In Toronto, the hunt is on for 3 gunmen who brazenly opened fire at a pub on opening night this weekend. 12 patrons were injured after one of the gunmen used an assault-style rifle. CTV's Allison Hurst has more on the ongoing investigation.
The police tape is down, but inside Piper Arms, clear signs of a violent attack.
It's like out of a movie. It's like gangland, gang style.
Bullet holes pierced through a back door, a TV above the bar, and an interior window.
It's very disheartening that we have individuals out in our community who are willing to take these types of action.
Police say 3 masked men barged in around 10:40 Friday night carrying an assault rifle and handguns and began shooting indiscriminately.
It's very concerning that, you can be anywhere and, in this case, enjoying a dinner or a drink.
7 people were struck by bullets in the arms and legs, and 5 others were injured by flying glass. Miraculously, no one died or suffered life-threatening injuries.
Well, I used to go to the old Scott House that it used to be, and ever since then it's been all kinds of different places.
Friday night was the Piper Arms grand opening next to Scarborough Town Centre.
There were a lot of delays with the opening, so I'm curious as to if this was planned.
The motive remains unconfirmed, but the shooting follows a week of gun violence linked to the towing industry. Police would not confirm a connection, but say they're looking into it.
Very scary. It's a place we plan to visit and most likely won't after this, so it's sad to hear it in our neighborhood.
Investigators have warned there will be an increased police presence in the area while they look for the suspects. Allison Hurst, CTV News, Toronto.
And in Washington, a new bill has been introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives that would stop Trump from invading Canada. The bill, introduced by a representative from Rhode Island, would withhold federal funding for any American operations to invade or seize territory from Canada, Panama, and Greenland without a vote of Congress. However, it's unlikely to become law given that the Democrats don't have the numbers in the House in order to pass the bill. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back with weather, but as we head to break, here's a look at today's closing market numbers.